It's another typical rainy Thursday night. Inside, it's warm. You fire up the exhaust fan as the kitchen fills with smoke and oil. You're flipping food at the stove. He walks over and reaches for the second drawer, pulls out the chopsticks, grabs the ceramic bowls for later. Every step runs on autopilot. He puts a piece of beef into your bowl. The traffic on the bridge was backed up for 3 miles today. You munch. Did you watch that video I sent? He nods, smiles over the rim of his glass. Yeah, the one with the cat? Dinner ends. The water runs in the sink. He scrubs the grease off the pan and lets them sit to dry. Friday morning, 9:15 a.m. You reach for your phone. A handful of notifications appear on your screen. You tap on the ones that load your messaging app. There is a line of texts from him. You sit up, your eyes wide as you scan the lines. Let's break up. I'm just not in the right state of mind right now. I don't have the energy to continue. Let's end it here to preserve the beautiful memories. Your heart thumps against your ribs. The bedroom feels freezing. You think he's having a panic attack, a rough time at work. Your thumbs fly across the keyboard. What happened? Are you okay? Call me. You tap send. A bright red circle flashes next to your text, an exclamation mark right in the center. Message could not be delivered. You stare at the red circle. You tap the text again. Resend. The red circle reappears instantly. You try to call, press the phone tight against your ear. No ringtone. Just, the number you have dialed is currently unavailable. 10 hours ago, he was scrubbing the grease off your frying pan, smiling over a glass of water. Now, those 4 lines sit on your screen, a permanent digital wall. He gave you his final statement and uninstalled your right to reply, before you even have time to react. Welcome to the show, I'm Liam, and here on The Glitch in the Room, we look at relationships through the lens of red, sharing the stories and signals that reveal what modern dating culture really looks like. So just sit back, relax, and make yourselves comfortable. When you look at that Friday morning text, your brain immediately looks for a reason. You think, there has to be a catalyst, a massive fight, infidelity, a sudden catastrophic event that changed everything in under 24 hours. But the reality is much quieter and much more terrifying. On Red, users have given this exact phenomenon a specific name. They call it the cliff drop breakup, because it forces you to realize that a relationship doesn't need to be broken to completely vanish. This episode isn't about a sudden exit. It's about the terrifying illusion of safety. Because in modern dating, it is easy to mistake the absence of conflict for stability. We think if there are no door slams, no screaming matches, just ordinary Thursday night dinners, then the foundation must be solid. We mistake compliance for commitment. But the logic of the cliff drop proves the exact opposite. It shows us that the most dangerous state in a relationship isn't open warfare. It's absolute silence dressed in peace. The kind where one has stopped fighting, not because they're happy, but because they have already checked out. We don't see the frustration, the resentment, building up beneath the surface. So today, we're looking at a pattern where peace is manufactured, where a relationship functions flawlessly, while the core has already collapsed, where you think you are building a life until the exact second the ground vanishes beneath your feet. So how does someone who loved you at dinner delete you by breakfast? Let's take a step back.
To understand the cliff, we have to step away from the edge and trace back to the kitchen. The truth is, he didn't leave you at 9:15 a.m. He had been moving out, in inches, for months. The moment he chose the psychology of silence, the countdown began. Why did he stop talking? Because the cost of communication had become higher than the value of the relationship. He realized every boundary he tried to raise turned into a trial. Every frustration he voiced became an escalating argument. So his brain made a survival switch. It decided that speaking up was completely futile. That was the birth of the silence deduction system. Those ordinary Thursday dinners, they were an invisible courtroom. He thought the silence meant peace, but he was sitting on the judge's bench running a hidden ledger. Every time a boundary was crossed, every minor friction you brushed off, every swallowed complaint on his end, a point was silently subtracted. You were being tried and convicted, without ever knowing the trial was taking place. Every time you lashed out, every disagreement, every second the tension rose, he watered it down with, "Yes, yes, you're right." When you complained about his distance, he didn't explain his stress. He just smiled and agreed. To you, it looked like maturity, love, and tolerance, but it is an unwillingness to communicate. He wasn't agreeing with you because he understood. He was agreeing because he was already fed up. It was an emergency exit, a way to buy temporary peace. But pretending everything is fine while carrying a growing grudge is a toxic tax on the mind. He was burning massive amounts of energy, maintaining that fake baseline of compliance. Until Friday morning, when the internal battery hits absolute 0%. The emergency shutdown triggered automatically. He didn't text you to fix things. He didn't have the stamina left to survive your reaction. He just dropped the text, pulled the plug, and walked away from that emotional drama he had already spent months shutting down on. Let's get right to the comments. Some voices in the community point to the same pattern. A commenter's ex told her, "I'm just not in a good state right now. I just want to be alone. Being together will only hurt you. So let's separate for a while." Another went through a similar experience. "Let's break up first. I don't feel like dating now. I also don't have the time recently. Currently, I can't meet your expectation." But the responses below expose how devastating this gentle language actually is for the victim. "He claims it's all for the sake of me, but he doesn't understand how hard it's been. He's too selfish. He doesn't know how to love."
When you stack these comments together, a clear pattern emerges. The community notices that almost every cliff drop follows this exact script. The dumper frames the exit entirely around their own flaws, their lack of time, their poor mental state, and their inability to meet expectations. By making themselves the problem, they create a line you cannot argue with. How do you fight back against someone who says they aren't good enough for you? The soft wording isn't there to soften the blow. It's there to lock the door from the inside, leaving the victim completely paralyzed. But as you scroll further down, we see the dumpers themselves begin to speak, exposing the hidden mechanics behind this choice. One dumper confesses to the community, "To be honest, I was the one who cliff dropped someone. The reason? Total communication breakdown. Every time I expressed a boundary or an insecurity, she immediately built a defense mechanism and attacked me." He describes the agony of the slow meltdown, having to comfort her emotions while his were bleeding away, until he became submerged in silence. "I felt completely trapped, so I wrote a long letter to break up and disappeared." Yet, right below his confession, a completely cold, clinical variation of the drop appears. "Honestly, it's just a lack of love. I've cliff dropped people too. I was just too lazy to communicate, too lazy to invite trouble. My internal script was just, yeah, yeah, you're right. As long as it got me out of the room, you could be right about anything. Then I block them, say goodbye, and never look back." When the discussion finally settles, the truth behind the mechanism becomes clear. The most terrifying thing about a cliff drop isn't the sudden absence of their love. It's the total obliteration of your relationship, leaving you trapped in an empty void, screaming at a digital wall while they walk away into a peace they manufactured entirely at your expense. So where does this leave us? When you step back from the comments, the real discomfort this pattern surfaces isn't the cruelty of the text message. It's how easily we can mistake compliance for commitment. We live in an era that is completely obsessed with low conflict dating. We've been conditioned by modern advice to believe that if there are no screaming matches, no door slams, then the foundation must be healthy. But the absence of an argument isn't always healthy. Sometimes it's just avoidance. And that is where the real glitch reveals itself. The moment a partner completely stops fighting with you, it doesn't mean you've won their argument. It just means they've closed the window, packed their belongings, and are on their way to leave. When the screaming stops, the relationship hasn't become stable. It's just completely vanished before the ground even splits.